To order.
Nobody mentioned that now.
Need a resolution to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Evelyn, Edna, any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Mike, you're up first, IT.
Or Ed. Thanks.
Michael? Two-sided thing, just don't peek to the second side quite yet.
Okay.
I don't wanna shock anybody.
No cheating, huh?
I don't wanna shock anybody too soon.
You're right. Thank you. Thank you.
So the stuff I have is, first couple of these are pretty simple. Asking for a resolution to move some money around. The first one I've listed is to move money for the office equipment code, where we had gotten money for the audio video recording, then we actually paid for some stuff that wasn't supposed to be part of that. So taking it from another code just to replenish that money and also to get some hard drives for a server that we need. And then the second one is to another code where we have a little bit extra money, we want to move some money so that we can get some additional microphones for the recordings. The recordings are working out really well, and we found some microphones that we could put in the background to catch up the sides. And that's what the second one is for.
So that's for this room here?
For this room, yep.
Mike, I'm sorry, Sarah, can I ask a question? I thought we were going on a $400 budget here
We
with
did.
YouTube.
Oh, yeah, we did.
What happened?
Yeah, everything worked really, really well, and we found really the only shortcoming we have is like supervisors are sitting on the side and they're contributing. The audio's not all that well, so we looked up how to solve that and found some microphones, and they're $173 a piece, and we would need 4 of them. So I found some existing monies if they're all if it's something we want to improve the project upon.
As opposed to us getting up and going to the podium.
Yeah.
The problem is we talk too much.
Yeah, because I watched some videos that there's like a lot of back and forth with people contributing, and we're kind of losing a little bit of that. Where the audio's coming through really well, and that was just a good way to pick it up. So it was a way to improve it, and I thought if I could find existing monies to do it, to see what the theory.
Oh, my God.
Someone like to move this, get it on the floor?
Okay.
That light there, in the middle there?
You did?
It's that.
All right, we have a second? Ron? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item B.
That was half the resolution.
Okay.
The next 2 lines are, and we talked about the network upgrades we need. We have money in the computer reserve fund, and so that's where we hit the back page. I found another code where I had an extra $1,000, and I wanted money to contribute towards that, but also request $117,582 from the reserve fund to take care of the networking for the county center and the sheriff's office. And to show how I come up with that number and to see how we're planning things out, that's what the back page is showing, where we figured out everything we need to do. We have network upgrades to do, we have server upgrades to do. And to not do it the same way we've always done, we could do it much cheaper. And that's where we get into new networking equipment and the virtualization. So what I did is I broke all the monies down, figuring out what I would need from the reserve and what I would need to come out of the 2015 budget to accomplish both projects. The reserve would accomplish the networking needs, and if we're not able to do the virtualization right away, it doesn't affect what the networking portion. So if we do one but not the other, we're still all right. And then also while I was putting it together, trying to find ways where we can get some money. And so I was asked if there was some parts we could put off to 2016. In the sheriff's virtualization, I could actually put off to 2016. Then as I worked on this, I found that they have a grant they're going to find out within a month, but it has to be used for 911. And the virtualization covers 911. So I had another column, 2014 grant, and if that falls through for some reason, then I could move that over to 2016. So the resolution I'm asking for is to take the money from the reserve fund, the $117,582, our networking infrastructure done.
Okay. Evelyn, second by Ron.
Just a question on the office equipment reserve, is it just, how did that even start and begin?
Yeah, I believe it started
Where's the
before.
money come from?
I guess, for years, some money's been put in there knowing some big expenses were coming up for servers and networking and such.
Money that's coming out of the general fund?
Yeah, it's been put there for a couple of years. And then the next part of this is where I was been planning out for the next 10 years, so we're not in the, because right now it's a spike. You know, so I'm looking for 117,000 now out of the reserve, 92,000 next year, so we can do the rest of it, and these spikes is the hard thing to budget for. So the rest of this is making like a 10-year budget where we know where those are gonna come through, and to see what we can set aside each year, so we can level budget requests and to handle those spikes. And plus, by putting that money aside, we can save money on maintenance contracts, because we'll already have our money, not trying to insure our stuff, kind of self-insure our own equipment. And if we have the money set aside, we can actually push it a little bit farther, because we know we have the money to fix it if we need to.
Any other questions? Rachel?
The grant, have you already applied for that grant, or?
Yeah, the sheriffs, they submitted it Friday, and it's when you pay that 911 surcharge on your phone bill, so it's guaranteed their money, they just have to justify the use of it, is what I was told. And so the virtualization plays right into their whole office for dispatch, so there shouldn't be any reason we shouldn't get it. But if there's always a chance, that's why I threw in 2016 what my backup plan is if that $40-some thousand doesn't come through.
Is there a match requirement on that grant?
No. No,
Peter?
it's their money.
I was just wondering, what, in the request for the grant, how much money are we?
The grant, $40,322.
Okay. Got you covered, yep.
Yeah, they had 45,000 that they could ask for, so I got it as close as I could get to cover all the parts we need.
Okay, any other questions? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Nothing else, Mike?
No, that's it.
Thank you.
That's the difference between that
If I may, are you gonna cut me off?
and that.
I wouldn't think of doing that.
Oh, thank you. Mike, I just had, two quick questions. One, I think it's great the way that the YouTube's looking, I think it's very professional. Mike, I've looked at a couple other county websites, some in some different states, and what I found was that there was a way to search by words in some of these videos. So, like, say I wanted to know about, grants for 911 center, and and I'm looking at videos on demand or YouTube from another county, and if I actually Google that with those keywords, it comes right up to the video, and it gets you right to that point so you don't have to watch, an
Right.
hour or something to get to what you're looking for, and that you do it by searchable terms. That's my first part of my question, if that's possible down the road. My second part is actually leading into something Supervisor Brock talked to me about. He had a great idea about clearinghouse of information for all the committees. Many times there's a lot of other supervisors here, and we don't all have the attachments or the agendas or anything that perhaps the committee members also got, and a way to do a searchable, and I'm not gonna steal your thunder on that.
No, go ahead.
No. But, so I'm just wondering that first part, and then maybe you could expand upon what you were talking about.
I just want like, for example, all of, when we get it, it's all done by computer, before it's printed out. If it all could be sent to one location, where the supervisors can go in and download it to their computer, and it stays there, so that we can, if we missed a meeting, or if we want to look back a year ago or whatever, it's just all located. I think the email could be like Joseph Warren, so all department heads just have an extra person listening. It goes right straight to this thing, and then the supervisor can go in and look for it. And just like the minutes, it could be the department head and then the date, and then that would be it.
Yes, you were talking, be able to get all these documents from home, but not open to the public, but just
Right,
like
just,
username
you
and
just
password.
have your own password and get in, get it, and, that way you can look back. And, over time, you can really build up a wealth of information that would allow you to say, well, this is the trend, particularly with financial stuff, you can say, this is the trend, or this is what or even looking, you can say, we plan to do this, and now we're doing this, and, just
Yep.
the usual stuff.
It's very doable, so I can look and see what's involved in it. I don't think it's not terribly expensive, and almost some ways to do it's almost free, so,
Okay.
I'll look into doing that. As far as being able to search by keywords into a video, we'd have to figure out how those keywords get there, because we kind of played with the closed captioning a little bit to see if we can enhance the videos, and it's pretty close, but sometimes the errors are not very good. What it thinks you said and what you actually said. But we can look and see how other people are doing it, how they've overcome those obstacles to see searching part work better.
I mean, and just looking at other counties and what I've been able to find with their video on demand and their YouTube and their some in live streaming, I mean, there's so many ways that we can enhance it. This is great, don't get me wrong.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was just thinking, you know, down the road, to be able to find that information so quickly is such an advantage to the public, to us, to employees, but also to be able to, I know, Paul, you and I spoke about getting these agendas and the attachments sooner than a day. I think, Evelyn, you brought that up a few weeks ago on something. If we're able to get that ahead of time or even put it into this clearinghouse of information, that way when we're sitting here, you know, we're gonna reduce paper, we're gonna be able to search by terms, you know, I think that will also answer a lot of questions that are being asked that, you know, we already have the answers to. We just have to look.
And the other thing is if we could make it searchable at some point, so I can type in a word and look for it that way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the overall website we're looking at to make it more easily accessible, and, you know, it's just content management, so we can integrate that all in one thing. Yep.
And I can send you that other county information.
And-
Is that doable, Paul? I mean, can we start working on getting this stuff ahead of time and
Well,
putting it into the database?
absolutely. Here again, this is part of the things that Mike and I have talked about. We want to actually revamp the website. There's a couple things that I'm looking at, is revamping the entire website so that it becomes much more user-friendly and that we do have the types of documents that you're referring to. The documents, once they come to the committee, they're public anyway, so I don't think we have to worry about passwords and things like that. We can just get them posted and you'll be able to find them, the public will be able to find them. We're looking at getting a Facebook, county Facebook page. I think we need, you know, some of our departments are already on Facebook, some of our departments are already using Twitter, but I wanna get that on a county-wide basis. So all of this will, I think, fit together nicely in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. I think all the comments that you made, I think, can and should be done, and it's just a matter of working with Mike and his team. Fortunately, he's got Rob, who is the guy devoted to web work, and I know Mike will just make this as part of his mission to get this done.
How could it be possible to include, you know, to take like a document like this and put it in with the minutes, just attach it at the end of the minutes?
Yeah, we can do, anything
That might make
today.
it simpler, that's something.
I can tell you today, anything is possible. It's just a matter of how you organize it on your website so that it's easily accessible and, you know, discoverable. And in fact, we've been using our existing website and making improvements to it. I know you've heard some comments on it in the past. Like, one of the things that we had a problem with was we would have these notices of hearing that were run by departments and not boards, but nobody would know about them, nobody would know where to find them. So what we did is we made a quick correction to the page to put a special spot there. But these are temporary fixes. What I want to do is get to this whole full-blown new web page, and we'll be able to do all of these types of things. And what we'll do is as we roll through this would probably be an ideal committee to bring it back to and say, okay, this is what we've come up with. Does this make sense in terms of your usage of it? Do you feel it's user-friendly? Just like we're getting feedback right now on the YouTube, and that's one of the reasons why Mike suggested that we get some more microphones in the room, is because of the volume concerns. You know, we'll keep working and enhancing, bring the product back, try it out. But I got to tell you, from my perspective, it's amazing today. You can do all of this stuff. You really can.
I think the key is just getting it ahead of time so that we can be here making an informed decision.
Right.
Right.
And that's gonna have to trickle down obviously to all the departments, but a little more than a day's notice so that when we're here, we can search for those documents. even if we're
Absolutely.
not on the committee. I think that's crucial and, you know, I'm hopeful that we'll see that on a regular basis.
No, that is something that's going to be, you know, that's always an effort to try to get the departments, get those agendas out early. Joan and I have had some discussions about that. We're trying to develop a standard rule as to how many days in advance, because we want everybody, treat everybody consistently so that you know, it's a lot easier for you folks to know X number of days. Just like these videos were supposed to be up in 72 hours. I know we ran into a little hiccup on that, but they will be from now on. we'll do the same thing with the agendas. We'll get those straightened out and make sure that they're getting up, a minimum number of days in
Well,
advance. It's just,
that-
it just requires planning, that's all.
It's not just the agendas, but the backup material
Yes,
that goes with
yes,
it.
definitely.
Okay, Peter, did I see your hand up?
You did, yes. Just a quick, is there a way of determining, how active, the YouTube is? How many participants are actually going in?
Yep, there's analytics that keeps track of the page counts,
Do we,
unique page
do
counts.
we have a feel for how many, is this active, is it busy, are people using it? Are people using it? I guess
Yeah,
that's my question.
because it's only been out there really a couple days, the one video's been hit 45 times. But I gotta look and see, was that a unique visitor, or do we?
So you can tell if it was the same.
Right,
Okay.
yep, and so that, we'll be looking at, like, over the next month.
Is there any way of telling how many times people look at me?
There's an extra software.
Oh, okay.
Evelyn?
I will say that I had a gentleman, as we know, my town, some have internet, some do not. The folks on dial-up, this is nothing for them. But for the folks that do have the high speed, I did have one gentleman pull in my dooryard, and for anybody who knows where I live in the middle of nowhere, but he drove all the way to my house to tell me that he was very excited. He could see committee meetings on the internet now, so I know there's at least one fellow in Thurman that sounds on it,
Good.
That's because of the example you set up there,
well, they do like it once they get it, they do like it.
Good. All right, is there any other questions? If not, we'll move on to self-insurance. Amy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I got my first certificate. I'm taking the safety course certification for my hard hat in January. I'm very, well, that's a stretch, right? I've got like 10 more classes.
You can do it.
I think I can do it. If anyone would like to join me, the offer stands. I'm gonna be learning about custodial safety and emergency hazards.
I didn't think typing was a needed safety course.
Typing? Are you making sense?
No, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
All right, Amy, you want to cover number A? Letter A?
The first item is a travel request. I'm requesting to travel next week to the Fall Self-Insured Association Conference in Corning. I am a scheduled speaker at the conference. Actually, the topic I'm speaking about is Warren County's safety program and trying to get other counties some information on what we do here, including our safety certificate program. The funding for my travel is in the self-insurance fund, and I will drive my own vehicle at my own expense.
Okay, Evelyn, second. Edna? Any discussion?
I have a question. You said you're driving your own vehicle at your expense. Why aren't you paying for mileage if you're going to work?
Because I prefer to drive my own vehicle. And if there's a county vehicle available, we can put it.
There's no, like, looking at pros and cons or even reimbursing us for any mileage if you take your own vehicle, all or nothing?
Years ago, the county adopted a very strict, the county board at that time adopted a very strict travel policy. The travel policy requires, in the first instance, mass transit where it's practical. In the second instance, it does require the use of county vehicles, and you can only use your own personal vehicle if you don't have an option to use a county vehicle. And of course, now that we have a fleet, that is the requirement. There were a couple of reasons behind that. County board members at that time felt it was more economical for the county. The other thing I will say too is that it actually works to the employee's favor, because if the employee drives their own vehicle and they have an accident, that's their insurance carrier, that's their responsibility. If they're in a county vehicle, then the county vehicle, if it's damaged, obviously will be covered at county expense. And also our liability insurance runs with our county vehicles. So, that was the reasoning. I, as an administrator, I don't have any flexibility on that. Amy doesn't have any flexibility unless you, the board, would want to change that policy for some reason.
And that's consistent throughout all departments?
Yes, this is a county-wide policy. Now, I believe there might be some exceptions in the policy. I'd have to go back and read it, but there is a county-wide policy on this.
Okay, safety consultant.
Item number 2,
We didn't,
you'll-
oh, hold it, we didn't vote?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I forgot, it's been so long. All right, did we have a resolution in a second?
Yes.
We did, all right, all in favor? All carried. Safety services.
Item number 2 is, I'm requesting a resolution to approve a safety services consultant contract with Needham Risk Management. I did issue an RFP for this, because our current contract expires at the end of this year. Needham Risk Management has been our safety consultant, since 2009. You know, I report to you every month. We've seen some favorable trends with this. I think it's a valuable part of our self-insurance plan. They were the only response to our proposal, and I put the annual fees there. It's a 3-year term, annual fees of $55,000, $57,750, and $60,650.
Someone like to move this to get it on the floor? Ron, seconded by Evelyn. Any further discussion? I would mention to Paul, we had our insurance meeting the other day, and our claims had been going down, and I assume that this program is part of the reason for those claims being reduced.
I believe so. I think that this organization has done a great deal in the county to educate and certainly sensitize our workforce to safety issues, and they've done a number of helped us with a number of policies, all of which I think leads to the county having better claims, and also leads to safety of our workforce. And a lot of it is a cultural thing, and constantly having Needham here on a regular basis, the way Amy has done, I think has made a big difference.
Okay, if there are no other questions, ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next?
Item number 3 is some of those policies that the Needhams have helped us write. Under the safety officer hat I wear, I periodically review and update these policies. Recall that I did send these to you on the email about 10 days ago because they're so voluminous. The Municipal Center Emergency Plan, I updated that. It was highlighted. Most of the changes are housekeeping. For instance, I took out Mr. Dusick's name and put in the county administrator, just so I won't have to come back and do this again next year if something should change. Not that I anticipate that, but, you know, things do change, like the Social Services Commissioner name was in there. So I changed those to make it a little easier on me and thus on you. Also, we had Emergency Services. Amy Drexel review them, and she made some changes to make not only this plan, but the Human Services Building comply with National Incident Management System, the NIMS. So I'm just asking for a resolution to approve these as they've been changed so that we can make them part of our policy book.
Okay, Evelyn?
I'd make a motion. I also add that I spent a lot of time reading these, and I was very pleased with the changes, particularly with regards to the NIMS. So it was very nice to see that in there, so I'd make that motion.
Okay, need a second? Edna? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else, Amy?
Was that for all of them, or do you want collectively?
Yes. Yeah. I assumed that's what it was. Thank you. Now we get to listen to the long-awaited presentation by our attorney. Martin?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, I handed out for you a proposed policy on preservation of institutional information. This is something that I've been working on for the last several months, in particular, and this has to do with litigation, potential litigation, etc. In 2010, there was a federal court decision in the matter of Pension Committee of Bank of Montreal. That case was dealt with securities litigation, but it's more popularly known for the standards that litigants, including municipalities, have to adhere to when they are notified or if there's a reasonable expectation of litigation, and what they have to do to preserve institutional information, emails, correspondence, documents, letters, and the like. And since that case came out, I think the county, for the most part, has been in compliance with those standards. But what this policy would do, this policy would formalize those standards into a policy. It would be a county-wide policy, which my office, me, would be most particularly responsible for implementing. And in that pension committee case, the court said litigants have a duty to preserve institutional information such as any document, material, or record created or received or maintained, whether such institutional information is stored electronically or in tangible format. Courts do expect us to have a reasonable, proper, and timely, effective measure to be taken to preserve institutional information. We don't have to adhere to a standard of perfection, but we have to try very hard. We really have to give it a good effort. The courts say that what is that good effort? When we reasonably anticipate that there may be litigation coming, or if we're on direct notice of litigation through correspondence, a notice of claim, a complaint, something along those lines, we essentially have to put a legal hold on our record keeping, on our documents. If we don't do that, the pension committee case has set forth that we can be sanctioned for that. Now, there are a series of sanctions that are available to a court, but more particularly what could happen to the county if we were to fail to do this. The court in pension committee held that the failure to issue a legal hold is gross negligence per se. Gross negligence per se means that we have failed to adhere to the standards. Now, I suppose someone could always purposely try to spoil documents or evidence, but that's another issue. But if we were to sort of negligently go about our business, not preserve documents when we know that it's reasonably anticipated that we're going to be involved in litigation, we have failed to adhere to the standards enunciated by the court in Pension Committee of Montreal, Bank of Montreal. So what happens is that a court could, if they make a finding that we have not adhered to those standards, they could impose monetary sanctions against a litigant, including the county. They could also charge a jury, if it's a jury trial, that, the county failed to maintain certain documents here, and you can draw an inference from that jury, which I think would be very detrimental to the county. We're not experiencing a problem with this. We haven't experienced a problem with this. Our counsel that are assigned to us by NYMER all get this. They're very, very strong on this. We get legal hold letters from them, which we disseminate to the various department heads that are involved or potentially involved in litigation. And I'm not so concerned about the NYMER situations. What I am concerned about, and why I think this policy is needed, is because I think there are times when we reasonably anticipate litigation or maybe on notice of litigation where NYMER is not involved. And I think this policy, once instituted, will apply to those NYMER cases, but it will also apply to all of our cases, to any particular potential litigation that's out there. The burden for complying with this policy, by the way, really falls on me, as it should, as your county attorney, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that. When the county reasonably anticipates that we're going to be involved in litigation, and I'm usually the one that finds out about that, but if a department head finds out about that, or an elected official finds out about that, they're to contact me. And what do? I take a look at that. I consider what we have in front of us. And I will send out a notice to elected officials if necessary. I will send out a notice to the various department heads as may be appropriate. And I also consult with Mike Colvin, the Director of IT. I'm obligated to do that in this policy. And together, collaboratively, with Mike Colvin, we kind of decide what it is that we have to do here to preserve documents and to preserve institutional information. This policy, as I've drafted, I think very importantly for your consideration, has been reviewed by Greg Johnson of Lemire, Johnson and Higgins. You know Greg. Greg is a top counsel, top litigator who's assigned to us by NYMIR. It's also been reviewed by our county administrator, Paul Dusick, who gave me some very instructive and good comments. And it's also been reviewed by Mike Colvin, our Director of IT. I thought those were the three key people that I should reach out to get comments on and feedback from. They've done that, and they are, for the most part, I would say, the comments were fairly minor, were fairly routine, and Greg Johnson is saying we should go forward with this, which is very important to me. So what I would expect to do is, if you approve this policy, and I know you're just getting it today, but I really think that it's something that we should move forward on. Once it's adopted, I will meet with all of the department heads at a department head meeting, and I will go through this policy with them so that they understand it, they understand why we're doing this, they understand the need for this, and they understand my expectations for what's expected of them as department heads as we go forward. So this is something that has been in the works. It really is something that I, as county attorney, would encourage the board to adopt. I think we need this. It's just one more tool. It's one more way that we can demonstrate to a judge, if we're ever up against it, that, you know what, Judge, we do have an institutional policy. We do have a policy, and we did our darndest to comply with this policy. I think that's important. If we have no policy, and we're criticized for not having a policy, and we may be in that gross negligent area, I'm not sure we're as in a strongest position. As a matter of fact, I'm sure we're not in as strong as a position if we would be if we didn't have this policy. So I think this policy gives our counsel who are assigned to us by our insurance companies more to say to a court. It certainly gives me and my office more to say to a court, and I think it's very protective of the county.
A question about hardware, hard drives and so on. Is there a time period that we will keep these for, or is it forever?
Well, you mean after we give notice? I think that is going to be case dependent, but how I envision that is with each particular case, as these cases are pending through the initiation stage, through discovery stage, through hearing stage, trial stage, appeal stage, I think we have an obligation throughout the course of the history of a particular case to preserve evidence, to preserve documents. Now, when a case is concluded, when all appeals are exhausted, if we can otherwise dispose of documents, dispose of records, consistent with our other archival and record-keeping policies, I think we can consider that at that time. If a case is assigned to us say, Greg Johnson by NYMIR, and the case is completed or concluded, and a lot of these cases, thankfully, don't get very far, okay? Some of them do, but most of them don't. But once that case is concluded, maybe the statutes of limitations have expired, issues with respect to available opportunities that maybe litigants may have with departments and agencies such as EEOC or something like that. Once those time periods have expired, I think what I would do is I would be conferring with Greg Johnson or whoever the assigned counsel is to make sure that we've met our obligations under our institutional policy and that they don't have any concerns any further with us no longer maintaining documents.
Any questions from the committee? Ron?
I just have a comment, maybe a question or two, but this seems pretty cut and dry and pretty common sense, and deliberately vague where it needs to be vague, and
I'll take that as a compliment.
Well, I'm just thinking of your little thing on your do-nothing approach.
That's gonna come back to haunt me, I know.
How that's accounted for your hefty retirement package.
It's really gonna come back to haunt me.
Yeah, right.
But, so you're looking for committee approval on this, it'll go to the full board. Can the full board get it in advance of the?
Full board would, and I, you know, as I was listening to the conversation here today about getting documents in advance, I certainly could have done that with this document. I certainly could have gotten that to you in advance. I don't know why I didn't. I mean, it's just pressed for time, but there was no reason why I couldn't have gotten this to you in advance of today's committee meeting. It's been ready for some time.
You were just following your do-nothing.
I wish I could say yes to that.
Peter?
Now, I just, maybe piggyback on kind of the thought process of this document. You know, you hear a lot in the news recently about video, police officers' video. I know in Washington County, there are some social welfare employees that actually, and I think they have to do, in child abuse cases, I think, okay? So, the ability to specifically identify what actually occurred under a specific set of circumstances and the value or non-value of that, I guess I throw that out there for just, do you think that's a good idea, a bad idea? Is it something that we as a county ought to consider? Would it go to maybe enhancing the intent of what you're preparing here, or not? Maybe not.
I think I think that, are you saying with respect to videography of certain, we do that at the jail, and I think there it's necessary and it works very well. I think we would have to consider, you know, each particular instance whether we would want to do something. I think there's privacy issues that come into play. As an attorney, my initial reaction would be if we don't have to record, that's one thing. If we think we should be recording, I think we need to be very careful about those situations and circumstances upon which we are recording. I can see where it could be very beneficial to the county in a particular case if you have something memorialized on tape, but I'm not sure that should happen in all instances. I hope that's an answer to your question.
Any other questions? How's the committee feel? Want to move ahead with this today, or you want time to consider it?
I normally would want to take a few months to digest this, but and wait for the revisions, but it seems very cut and dry, and I'm ready to move forward.
Okay, I'll consider that a resolution. Second, Edna? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, any other business for this committee? Hearing none, resolution to adjourn. Jim, Edna, thanks.
I'll try and limit my references.